Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Koshian, I want to thank you for being here this morning, and I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling this hearing. I think it's very important that we look at what the Inspector General for the Treasury recommended and take a look back at the research that he did. Nearly 1 year ago, the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, Russell George, issued a report concluding that IRS employees used, and I quote, inappropriate criteria, end of quote, to identify tax-exempt applications for review. I want to revisit the findings of his report. The IG found that there was ineffective management, and that's a quote, at the IRS. The first line of the results section of the report said this began with employees in the determinations unit of the IRS office in Cincinnati. I didn't say that. The IG said that. The IG also went on to say that these employees, and I quote, developed and used inappropriate criteria to identify applications from organizations with the words Tea Party in their names, end of quote. The IG also said these employees, quote, developed and implemented inappropriate criteria in part due to insufficient oversight provided by management, end of quote. The IG report that former IRS official Lois Lerner did not disclose the use of these inappropriate criteria until 2011, a year after it began. Again, I didn't say that. The IG said that. Although, quote, she immediately, end of quote, ordered the practice to stop, the IG stated that employees began again using different inappropriate criteria, quote, without management knowledge, end of quote. In contrast, the Inspector General never found any evidence to support the Central Republican accusation investigation that this was a political collusion directed by or on behalf of the White House. Before our committee received a single document or interviewed one witness, Chairman Issa went on national television and said, and I quote, this was the targeting of the President's political enemies, effectively and lies about it during the election, end of quote. Similarly, Representative Hal Rogers, the chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, stated on national television, and I quote, the enemies list of out of the White House that IRS was engaged in shutting down or trying to shut down the conservative political viewpoint across the country, an enemies list that rivals that of another president some time ago, end of quote. Representative Dave Camp, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, said, and I quote, this appears to be just the latest example of a culture of cover-ups and political intimidation in this administration, end of quote. The Inspector General identified no evidence to support these wild political accusations. The IG reported that according to the interviews they conducted, the inappropriate criteria, and I quote, were not influenced by any individual or organization outside the IRS. The IG testified before this committee that his own chief investigator reviewed more than 5,500 emails and found no evidence of any political motivation in the actions of the IRS employees. Rather than continuing this partisan search for non-existent connections to the White House, I believe the committee should focus squarely on the recommendations made by the Inspector General. The IG made 9 recommendations in his report last May. As of February of this year, the IRS now reports that it has completed all. For example, the IG recommended that the IRS change its screening and approval process for tax-exempt applications. In response, the IRS ended the end of so-called be on the lookout lists and developed new guidance and training. The IG also recommended that the IRS ensure that applicants are, quote, approved or denied expeditiously. In response, the IRS made significant progress on its backlog over the past year, closing 87% of these cases. As I close, I want to thank the Commissioner and his predecessor, Danny Werfel, for their extraordinary cooperation with Congress. I completely disagree with the Chairman's letter yesterday complaining about the agency's so-called failure to produce documents and its noncompliance with committee requests. Nothing could be further from the truth. more than 250 IRS employees have spent nearly 100,000 hours responding to congressional requests. They have delivered more than 420,000 pages of documents to this committee, and they have spent at least $14 million in doing so. Chairman's statements simply disregard these facts. They are also at odds with Chairman Camp of the Ways and Means Committee, who issued a press release just this month praising IRS for its cooperation with document requests as a, and I quote, significant step forward. Commissioner, I wanted to thank you for your efforts during this investigation and for your exceptional cooperation. And I want to thank all of those IRS employees who are working so hard and tirelessly to do their jobs. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you, and I yield back.